After 14 years at the same company, my new boss sat me down and accused me of gross misconduct I never actually committed, just to scare me into accepting a massive pay cut. I let her keep talking, quietly got a lawyer, and turned her own play against her so badly it ended in a lawsuit. I'd worked at this company for 14 years, long enough to watch it change hands more than once, but the sale that mattered was the last one. New owners came in with the kind of cost-cutting playbook you'd expect. Salaries quietly turned into hourly wages, which functionally cut what a lot of us actually took home, and the more experienced, more expensive staff got laid off first, since apparently loyalty and expertise were just line items to trim. I wasn't one of the ones let go, mainly because I was still needed to train a whole batch of newer, cheaper replacements, which in hindsight should have told me everything about how replaceable they actually thought I was, once I'd finished making myself unnecessary. Then one day, out of nowhere, the new manager called me into her office and told me I was being investigated for gross misconduct. She didn't give me specifics I could actually respond to, just vague, serious-sounding language clearly meant to rattle me. I sat there and realized fairly quickly what was actually happening. This wasn't a real investigation. It was a pressure tactic, a way to scare a 14-year employee into either accepting a drastically smaller paycheck to stay, or resigning quietly so they wouldn't have to pay out what they actually owed me. I didn't argue in the room. I didn't get defensive or emotional. I just let her talk, asked a few calm questions, and left. Then I went and did what she clearly never expected me to do. I looked into my actual legal rights as an employee, found a lawyer, and started building a real understanding of exactly where I stood. Where I live, it's completely legal to record a conversation without the other person's consent as long as you're a participant in it. So that meeting where she accused me of gross misconduct existed on tape, word for word, whether she remembered saying any of it clearly or not. Here's the detail that actually mattered most, the thing she either didn't know or didn't think through. If I got fired, the company would immediately lose one of its biggest clients, a relationship worth a massive ongoing contract, because after all those layoffs, I was genuinely the only person left that this particular client trusted enough to keep working with. Her hands, once I pointed this out through my lawyer, were a lot more tied than she expected. What started as a so-called mercy offer of 2 weeks' notice turned into my full, legally entitled 12 weeks, with every benefit still intact, because I knew exactly what I was owed and made sure she knew I knew it. For those entire 12 weeks, I did something that probably annoyed her more than if I'd just been bitter and coasted. I worked exactly the way I always had. I didn't slack off. I didn't badmouth the company to clients or coworkers on my way out. I kept training the newer staff properly, kept delivering the same standard of work I'd delivered for 14 years, right up until my actual last day. Meanwhile, from what I could see, management was busy taking care of everyone else, treating the team to little perks and pampering, while quietly pushing me to keep grinding through my notice period like nothing unusual was happening at all. Then came the part that actually made the whole thing worth it. The day after my last day, two things landed at almost the exact same time. The employee I'd spent weeks properly training quit immediately, in solidarity with me, walking away from a job she'd need to start over from scratch. And my manager received a formal legal letter over my unfair dismissal, built on everything my lawyer and I had quietly put together, including that recorded conversation where she'd accused me of something that was never true. She couldn't really fight it. It was all right there, in her own voice. The whole situation blew up into an actual lawsuit that ended in an out-of-court settlement. I left the company for good either way. And based on everything I've heard since, the business hasn't exactly thrived without me. It's still technically operating, but from what former co-workers tell me, barely. When this story got shared around and people weighed in with their reactions, a lot of it circled back to one simple point, that companies who gut their experienced staff to save a little money on paper usually end up paying for it in a much bigger, much slower way later on. Plenty of people brought up the classic idea that you drive in quality and drive out cost, not the other way around, and that whoever bought this business clearly did the opposite and lost all the goodwill that used to come with it. A good number of comments were specifically about how abusive management tends to underestimate employees who actually know their legal rights, and how a 10-minute internet search can sometimes do more damage to a company than any lawsuit ever could, simply because it puts the leverage back where it belongs. Some people pointed out something a little more uncomfortable too, that none of this would have worked if I hadn't already been quietly documenting things and understanding my rights well before that meeting ever happened, which says something about how much employees are expected to protect themselves in situations like this instead of being able to trust their employer not to lie to their face in the first place. Honestly, looking back, I don't think I'd change a single part of how I handled it. I didn't rush into anything. I thought everything through and researched it properly before I made a single move. What still sits with me isn't even the money or the settlement, it's how easily she assumed 14 years of good work could just be erased with one vague accusation in a closed office, and how close that plan actually came to working on someone less prepared than I happened to be. So I'll leave you with the same thing I left them with. Would you have done exactly what I did, or would you have just taken whatever they offered and walked away quietly? Let me know your verdict below.